You probably assume it's the money, the lavish cars, the perfectly curated designer outfits, the luxurious dream of boarding a private jet like it's a regular Uber. That's the fantasy, right? That's what society has conditioned everyone to believe, that women are irresistibly drawn to material wealth. But what if I told you that what truly captivates a woman, what pulls her in so deeply she can't even explain it, lies far beyond material possessions? What if I told you that a woman would choose a man with presence over a man with power, that she would daydream endlessly about a man cloaked in mystery more than she ever would about one who flaunts his mansion, and that she would lay awake at night thinking of the man who simply makes her feel seen more than the one who buys her window seats on every first-class flight? There's something more primal, more gripping, and more emotionally potent than the numbers in a bank account or the horsepower under a hood. It's not about surface-level seduction. It's about piercing through to the psychological roots of desire. The truth is, when you understand these deeper things, you don't just get her attention, you imprint on her. You become unforgettable, not through noise or flash, but through stillness and gravity. Let's unravel what truly haunts a woman in the best possible way, not through theatrics, but through substance. You can walk into the room with a Rolex glinting on your wrist, keys to a Ferrari casually tossed on the table, your financial confidence spilling out like a flexing badge of honor. But if your mind is elsewhere, if your attention is fractured, if you're scanning your phone instead of listening to her story, you might as well be invisible. There's a kind of presence that transcends being in the same physical space. It's a presence that says, I am here, fully, deeply, now. When a man leans in not just physically, but emotionally and mentally, when he locks eyes not to dominate, but to understand, when he listens not to respond, but to witness, that's when presence becomes wealth. Because in a chaotic world where everyone is distracted, a man who slows down, who truly looks, who sees her for who she is beyond her makeup, beyond her words, beyond her armor, that's a man who stands out. That's the rare kind, and rarity has always had value far greater than gold. Women don't just desire to be admired, they crave being understood. They remember how you made them feel. And when you show up with full attention, when your stillness becomes magnetic, when your silence is heavier than 1,000 compliments, you become the kind of presence she can't shake. That's not something money can buy. That's something forged in awareness and carved into memory. There's an unspoken allure to a man who isn't easily shaken, whose emotional balance isn't swayed by the winds of circumstance. In a world saturated with impulsive reactions and emotionally unstable outbursts, a calm man is like shelter during a storm. Women are acutely sensitive to energy. They notice the man who doesn't flinch when tension enters the room, who doesn't crumble under pressure or retaliate with ego. They remember the one who doesn't argue with the waiter out of pettiness, who handles disagreement with quiet strength, who meets chaos with clarity. That's emotional mastery. And emotional mastery doesn't mean being robotic or detached. It means having command over oneself. It's strength rooted in stillness. It's the kind of man who doesn't need to control others because he's already mastered his own emotions. And that's a form of power that most women find more compelling than any flashy gesture. Because when a woman observes a man handle conflict with maturity, speak with intention, and choose peace without sacrificing principle, it signals safety. It signals depth. It communicates that this man isn't looking to be impressive, he simply is. He's not pretending to be strong. He is strong because his strength is quiet and enduring. She might not consciously articulate it, but she feels it in her bones. That kind of composure doesn't just attract, it anchors. Imagine a man who wakes before dawn, who hits the gym not because someone's watching, but because he honors his commitments to himself. He reads, he studies, he works when it's uncomfortable, and he doesn't break promises, not even the ones he makes in private. That man is disciplined, and discipline, though rarely highlighted in glossy magazines or romantic comedies, is the silent aphrodisiac. It's the muscle beneath the skin of every hive, al-human, because a disciplined man shows that he can protect not just her, but himself. He can resist temptation. He can uphold boundaries. He's not ruled by impulse or vice. When she sees that when she watches him choose purpose over pleasure, standards over short cuts, her respect turns into something deeper. Desire, admiration, obsession, because a man who disciplines himself is broadcasting a message louder than any pickup line. He's saying, "You can rely on me, I am steady," and that, to a woman who longs for emotional safety, is irresistible. Not because he's boring, not because he's a machine, but because he can be counted on. When the world is noisy, chaotic, distracted, the man who shows up again and again with integrity in action, not for applause, not for validation, but because it's who he is, becomes the man she fantasizes about. Long after the moment passes, some men give it all away too soon. They explain too much. They overshare, thinking that transparency equals intimacy. But the truth is, mystery, the subtle art of being slightly unreadable, slightly held, has a gravitational pull few things can match. Because when a woman feels like she hasn't quite figured you out, when you leave breadcrumbs instead of full explanations, when your life seems full of things she hasn't yet seen, she becomes fascinated. She starts thinking about you at odd hours. She scrolls through your feed trying to piece together the puzzle. She rewinds your words, replays your looks, trying to decode the layers. That isn't manipulation. That's magnetism. Mystery isn't a game, it's restraint. It's having a life so full that she can only see part of it. It's answering questions in a way that reveals depth instead of dumping your diary. It's letting her wonder without trying to be understood in a single sitting. That wondering becomes obsession. And then there's integrity, not flashy, not loud, but the quiet strength of a man who means what he says. When you say you'll call, and you do. When you say you'll be there, and you are. When she tests your boundaries and finds that they hold, that's integrity. That's the lighthouse in the storm, and it's in that space, when she realizes you can't be bought, you can't be swayed, that she softens, that she feels safe enough to melt into her feminine energy. Because a woman cannot surrender into her softness unless she knows deeply, instinctively, that the man before her is unshakable. Money might get her attention, but mystery and integrity, those two together, that's what keeps her up at night thinking about you. That's what makes her choose you over and over when the noise fades and only the truth remains.